We're back.
It's season 2.
I have missed you all. Where did the time go?
Oh my gosh, this year is going to be bananas, but I am so excited.
Why can I not hear the word bananas and do the Gwen Stefani spelling of bananas? Regardless, what are we waiting for? Let's get into it.
Let's do this. Welcome to Manage Chaos Podcast, where we give you the startup business rundown in less time than it takes for you to get to work. I'm Rachel Anderson.
And I'm Katrina Purcell.
And today we're giving you our 2025 predictions and trends. Okay, Katrina, we're ready. Kick us off. What is your first trend prediction?
So my first trend prediction builds on one that we had in 2024 around AI, but it's really about the evolving of the AI usage from sort of chatbots, assistants, that companion that you talk to write your social media, and more into actual AI agents. So AI is really displacing, not replacing. And so thinking about how businesses are going to need to start to upskill their workforce to really be able to interact effectively with the different agents that they might be utilizing within their workflow. And so how are we going to actually start to leverage processes and SOPs that hopefully businesses have built? And really, that is going to become key. And those are going to be the people who can move more quickly with AI because they have taken the time to do those initial ground steps around figuring out what the process actually is without a human component to it, because that can obviously be automated in a better way and given over to an AI agent. The other thing is really going to be moving beyond just efficiency and automation, right? So the tools themselves are becoming more accessible and more affordable. I was just on a call where we were talking about a presentation that had to be built and, talking about all the new AI that has sprung up that can create beautiful presentations, beautiful slides from just words, which for me, someone who is not good at all at creating slides, and anyone who's worked with me knows that, is amazing because I'm great at getting the information together, but making it pretty, not something I can do. Also, decision-making, right? So how can AI start to help small businesses analyze data, make more informed decisions about everything from your marketing campaigns to inventory management? And how can you start to leverage that as less of a sounding board and more of a true, person, right? For lack of a better word, who's really working for you in your business.
Yeah, I think that that's really smart. And, I was talking to a business owner just a few days ago that was talking about doing AI strategy. So even though we've seen up to this point sort of AI doing tasks, it's evolving. So I think that that's a really interesting prediction to see where that goes. The second prediction that we have goes really nicely with a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. It's all about attending to micro market as a possible avenue with AI. But my thought on that is that it's probably not very probable for most businesses. So let's really break that down. So basically, a micro market is this kind of newer concept that's coming back that's really about how you can get extremely, extremely specific, really micro into what your market segment is. And with AI, it makes it kind of possible. Think about if I do a silly one, I want to target a person that only has 9 toes, that lives in, sub-zero temperatures and has 5 scissors and 1 picture on the wall, right? In theory, now with personalization and the AI tools, we could get so super specific as long as that information is somewhere in the digital sphere. But the problem with that is that in the US, we are not quite up to speed where some other countries are with being able to capitalize on that. And I think we see that a lot with social algorithms specifically. I think TikTok even is a good example. Right now, when we're recording, the future of TikTok in the US is kind of a question mark. So, this part of the prediction could be out of date in a month. But I think the idea of it is really good. So one of the things that makes TikTok super successful is how very specific the algorithm can get on your preferences, and whether good or bad, but can get really specific. But most of our algorithms are not that well made yet. They're not that targeted. And so hyper personalization, while a good idea for businesses and is possible, is really about scaling and adopting those processes and practices. But then we get onto the other swing of things with privacy concerns. And really, is there a tech appetite for that kind of a hyper specific algorithm kind of in the public? And so even though there's a lot of quote unquote micro things coming out in the last few months and really seeing them on the horizon in 2025, things like micro moments, if you haven't heard that word, or like I said, a micro market, it's really reminding me of the days where some of our demand generation practices would evolve or involve sending out really personalized gifts in the mail to really specific customers. And then that way, it was a way for you to connect with them outside of the kind of white noise of email and actual in-person mail and all these other things. The problem, though, is that creates a high customer acquisition cost. So your product and your business needs to be able to exceed how much it costs for you to get that specific and spend that much time being specific on a very small demographic of people in order for that to be a worthwhile activity. So I think that we're going to see a lot of businesses trying this. I think we're going to have a lot of conversation here. But frankly, if you're a small business or a startup, I don't think you should do this. I think you should definitely get specific about your market, but don't get so micro that it's going to ratchet up your costs and not become a beneficial aspect for you.
It is also always one of those things. I don't know how many times you've been in a conversation where you've talked about something, and then suddenly you're being served ads for it and you think, everyone's listening, right? And so I do think there's an element of customers, some distrust if things are too targeted, because it almost feels like, what were they listening to and where did I share this information? So I think it's always good to kind of err on the side of your customer and how they're going to feel when they get that targeted gift, and whether or not they'll be appreciative or they'll feel like, wait a minute.
Yeah, you're on the side of the customer. I think that is a great way to put that.
And that goes really into our third trend. So we are off to a great start with our first episode this season, the demand for a seamless customer experience. So we've seen a lot of this, and I would say the best example is actually the streaming services. And, we all had cable, we all cut the cord, and now we are like, wait, why do I have 7 different streaming apps that I pay for? And I think now we're starting to see consolidation there, or bundling, whereas that is exactly what cable was doing before, right? It was bundling channels. And so there's really customer fatigue around too many apps, too many logins, right? The desire to sort of have this more omni-channel experience. And as we've discussed before, there is definitely an element of privacy where customers want to know where their data is being shared or when, but when they want it to be shared, they want it to be easy, right? And so I start to think about all the single sign-on logins that you probably have with your Gmail, and just starting to think about an ecosystem where I'm not remembering 18 different passwords and I don't have to log into all these different systems, where things are personalized to me, where in your product, I'm getting tailored recommendations of what pieces of your software or your service I should be using in my business, where you're able to tell me how to get the most out of your product. And really, I think that's what customers are expecting now. Not blanket offers or blanket suggestions, just, oh, hey, we have this new tool, but more so, why is this new tool relevant to me and how I'm using your product, and why should I care? And being really more proactive in how you interact with those customers. So not waiting for them to ask you, but really kind of offering them solutions and guidance. And really around, obviously, fast and efficient. And there's an element in here where perhaps AI can do that. But to be honest, I think there's no replacement for real human interaction. And I think that's definitely going to be something that people continue to prioritize when they want speed and convenience. So, I don't know how many times this has happened to you, but it's happened to me quite a few times recently where I've had to deal with a chatbot just to get to the real person. And the chatbot only can answer 3 or 4 things and not what I need. And it's so hard to actually get the real person. And so I think businesses really need to think through how they're going to optimize their processes to make sure that things are efficient, right? And that they're quick and that customers are getting exactly what they need when they need it, and not feeling like they have to jump through hoops because the business maybe wanted to be, more efficient internally, but that's not actually showing externally.
I think a good addition to that too is that there are hundreds of ways for a business to be efficient. You need to make sure that you pick one that both works well for your business and your customer. And the thing I'm specifically thinking about that you made me think about is generational divide. I feel so much way about how much segmentation we do by generations, and sometimes think it's like too much. But in this instance, I think the chatbot is a great example. I think it's hilarious when I watch these like social videos of like parents trying to get their kids to call for appointments and stuff because they're so phone phobic. Like this whole new generation is like, I don't want to talk to anyone ever, right? So an AI bot that allows them to not talk to someone, great idea. But if your primary customer is maybe older, where they're very accustomed to talking to a real person to get solutions, it's a terrible idea. So even thinking of it in that context of, is this the right kind of customer consolidation and efficiency, is going to be really key. The other thing I've really seen in the digital market specifically, and yes, this sort of goes into marketing, but I think that this is really important for all businesses to understand, is that in 2025, there's going to be a huge conversation around storytelling. So what does this mean? Because it's a little bit different than our past understanding of storytelling in businesses. Storytelling is really about bringing the customer or the prospect into the average with you. So if you think about the last several years of business life, back into like 2019, 2020, we fell into COVID and everyone was isolated and everyone had to take care of their immediate surroundings. And so we sort of as a society went into this minimalistic scarcity sort of like place where we were purging and we were cleaning up and we were doing things internally and in our homes and all that kind of like immediacy. And then we went into the aftermath of COVID times and really quarantine. And we saw this era of maximalism and the influencer became a huge, huge part of brand marketing, a way for the quote unquote average person to feel like they're not being marketed to, right? And using trusted individuals, trusted being people in their feed that they've chosen to follow to really do the sale. So some of that is still true in this storytelling element, but it's really more about taking you into the everyday, because now consumers are fatiguing on all of that and all of the artificial and all of the overproduced and the pushed. And so what does that mean for startups? Well, you're trying to connect with your customers. And ironically, I think you'll have the most opportunity to actually do that. You're not so big yet that your business is too stuffy or too robotic or too processed. You have a lot of autonomy and flexibility. You don't have a ton of that stuff to bog you down. And so I see a huge opportunity in the 2025 year for customers and prospects, especially for smaller businesses, to be brought into the conversation with them as part of sort of this day-to-day what life is like. It's the highs, it's the lows, it's the funny moments, it's how the sauce is made. Is something a success? Is something a failure? Is it a hilarity? All of these like little moments that feel more authentic, less produced. That is what the storytelling is about. So really you're thinking of your customer almost as like one more part of your employee body, about your right-hand person, about like that close confidant. And you're just putting content forward that allows them into that without a lot of the polish. So really tell the story of your business and your brand, and lean into your value in order to capitalize on that storytelling aspect.
So an organization I think is doing a great job at this, and you're really going to laugh, is the TSA, which obviously we have no choice but to use the TSA, but their Instagram is hilarious. And they tell real life stories of things that are found at TSA checkpoints around the holidays. So around Thanksgiving, for instance, they did a really good episode around, or not episode, but series of posts around, specific types of Thanksgiving food and whether or not they were allowed in your carry-on. And they're really good at getting in on the current trends and basically tying them into TSA. And so highly recommend following them if you're not, because they're doing a really great job at the storytelling and humanizing the TSA function. That's
a super example. And I need to know, is gravy on the list? Gravy.
Yes, it cannot go in your checked bag. It cannot go in your carry-on. It has to go in your checked bag.
Dang it. Okay. Bummer.
Jellied cranberry sauce also in the checked bag.
That's fine. I don't need that stuff. All right. So I do know that we're at that sort of sweet 15 mark. So stick with us because we have a fifth and final prediction. It's really important. It is that there is a lot of hesitancy in the world right now, especially in the US, and that hesitancy is translating into business and is creating consolidation. And we really think resilience is going to be the key to overcoming that. But we didn't want to leave it there, which is why this episode is going to be just slightly longer than our normal. So let's talk a little bit about this. So basically what I'm seeing as a trend in this 2025 era is that we're seeing a pulling back from businesses in a lot of areas. So for example, AI is changing what roles are being hired for and what people are assuming that they can eliminate for redundancy. There's so much uncertainty with countries still in war, to big government changes, to trades and tariff uncertainties, and so much more. And then even as all those things are kind of coming about, we're seeing the nature of how businesses have traditionally been structured is really changing. I saw a statistic just yesterday that said that there was a huge flattening of organizational structures on the horizon, that there's about 40% less middle management jobs now than there were in 2022, because businesses are trying to flatten their organizations and have much more kind of touch points with people that are doing the work, but then also getting rid of what they're seeing as opportunities for redundancies. So in the smaller and startup business world, we've also seen this in the last couple of years in investment dollars. So even though the amount of investment dollars have increased overall, we're seeing fewer businesses getting those investments. So the total money is more, but less of those businesses are getting it, which means they're getting bigger investments, but you have less opportunities for that cash. So I really think that's going to continue to affect small businesses. And we're seeing a huge increase because of that layoff trend in freelance culture. But I don't really think it's by people who want to be there. It's people that have to be there. And so that's really going to change how people are seeing hesitancy and caution and what it means to be resilient. So what does this mean for business? Well, my prediction is that we're going to see some increased chaos output from businesses because of this. Businesses are going to be struggling to keep up and really balance the rate of that change and the need to report on it and their stability in that uncertainty to their boards and their investors. And if they're, public, then the general public. I think we're really going to see that businesses in mid-market do well because they're not that big yet. So they have a lot of opportunity to change fast. They don't quite have as much bureaucracy or kind of people necessarily requiring certain metrics or movements from them, and that they also are not quite as volatile still as smaller businesses. So they're mature enough to kind of survive some of those rough waters. If it was me, I would spend time on my business continuity plan. Make sure that what you're thinking about as a leader is doing less with more. And I don't say that as a way to say, hey, you should fire people and then make the people that remain do more work, because that's a terrible, terrible idea. What I mean is that you should really be thinking about, is every action that we're asking our employees to do clearly aligned to a way that we can sustain cash flow or increase cash flow, even if it's just by a little bit, so that we can maintain during this uncertain time. And really play the long game. Make a smart plan about how you're going to get through not this 1 year, but 3 years, and don't waffle on that. One of the biggest takedowns I have seen again and again from big leaders is that they'll pick a long-term plan. They won't see enough of whatever the motion is they think they should see in a quarter. And then they make a big overhaul, and then they make everyone stop what they're doing and change. And then it doesn't fix it, because a quarter is not enough time. You really need 6 months minimum to start seeing some of these long-term plans come into effect. And you need time for that to happen. And so if you short-term look at your KPIs and metrics, and long-term let that strategic plan have time to mature, then that's one of the ways that you can really kind of weather the storm. But Katrina, I know we talked a lot about resilience. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so resilience is definitely going to be sort of the key to overcoming the hesitancy. And as we were prepping for this episode, we realized we were going to go way over. And there was just really too much to talk about. So we've made an extra episode that's going to launch next week that's going to talk about kind of the idea of what really is resilience, what is kind of not resilience, and also how smaller businesses don't have to really be afraid of the ambiguity of being resilient. For now, though, we're definitely going to stick to how we can use this idea of sort of long-term, short-term planning for your business and what it looks like to make resilient business decisions. So we're going to go through some examples, and we're going to start with financial prudence, which I always tell Rachel is the boring one, but it is kind of key to making sure your business stays afloat. And so, Rachel, let's start through short term. What might businesses do that they think is financially prudent, but really isn't going to get them the long-term outcomes they want?
Yeah, short-term leaders probably think, oh, I got to hold on to all my money. I shouldn't spend because I'm not sure what our rate of return is going to be. Don't invest, meaning don't hire more people. Don't try to expand products or industries or anything like that. Just sort of hold back.
Yeah, and I think in terms of thinking longer term, it's really about cash flow management, right? And so the resilient choice here is being flexible, being adaptable, really being able to have that hard conversation with yourself and your team around sunk cost and evaluating those biases, making sure that you're kind of essentially, Rachel loves to say this, doing less with more, right?
I love it in this one context, Katrina.
And like, so really looking at what you're currently spending on, right? Like, what do you have to spend on, and how can you maximize that output rather than cutting it all together, right? Or streamlining the process. So we've talked a lot about how we can streamline that, streamline different things using automation, or even, I love to say this, most of the time you could streamline things by just having a process, because oftentimes companies think they have a process, but they actually don't. And so just by understanding what the process is. The next one that we're going to talk through is remote and hybrid work. So Rachel, short term.
Yeah, if you're thinking really short term about remote and hybrid work, then you're probably thinking about how you need your employees to come into the office because you need to be able to see that everybody is working on the same things. You need to be able to know that collaboration is happening, that everyone's on the same page. And frankly, employees are going to do it because the job market is not in their favor right now, but they're not going to like it. So that's really going to be your short-term thought process, most likely.
Yeah, because longer term, as more flexible environments open up, right, employees are going to leave when the economy is more in their favor and they've got options. To be resilient, you really have to be flexible and adaptable, right? You've got to be able to find a good balance based on the true needs of your organization. So there might be departments or groups that, yes, they do need to be in the office 5 days a week, but does everyone? And understanding the actual needs of the company rather than just what a leader might prefer, right? So it's really not one size fits all. It's really about evaluating the business needs and being flexible. Okay, how about mental health and burnout prevention, Rachel?
Yeah, if you're thinking, oh man, I got to be resilient this year, I need to scale back on benefits so that I can still provide for my employees, but maybe not as broadly, or I'm going to replace some of their benefits with apps like the Calm app, which has its place. There's no shade here. Or other sort of like replacement ideas so that something becomes cheaper for you to be able to provide for employees. That's a short-term thinking.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we think to ourselves like, oh, everyone's burnt out. Let's just give them an app to meditate, right? The longer term and the more resilient solution there is really evaluating, why are they burnt out? What are we doing as an organization to sort of promote this culture, or to perhaps not provide them enough resources? And are we listening to our leaders when they are requesting additional resources to ensure that their teams don't burn out? So it's really not just an HR initiative. It's really a company-wide initiative, and it requires having leaders, again, who can be adaptable, because what solution works for me may not work for Rachel, and vice versa. And so it's understanding and listening to your people and being able to then adapt and adjust your offerings to what people are actually telling you, not assuming.
So as Katrina and I were prepping for this episode, we really realized that resiliency is a whole separate conversation and question, and we're going to provide that to you in this season. I believe next week it'll launch. So if you want to hear more about what it means to be resilient as a business, we've got that for you. But for now, here are our 5 predictions for 2025. 1, AI usage evolving from chatbots and assistants to agents is going to be on the rise too. We are really going to be seeing a thought process or a development towards a micro market as a possibility because of AI, but we don't think it's going to be very probable for success. Number 3, the demand for seamless customer experience is going to be on demand. 4, storytelling will be a requirement for businesses everywhere. And finally, hesitancy in business is going to create a lot of consolidation, but resiliency is going to be the key to overcoming that. So we're going to revisit these trends and predictions at the end of next year, which already sounds crazy to say. But for now, we are so excited to be in season 2. Our season is already loaded with incredible special guests. Real life case studies will be helping you solve, and more of the business rundown you've come to love, and that we've come to love, to be honest. We're going to be tackling topics like resilience readiness, why personal branding is crucial for leaders, hiring, AI, and so much more. We will see you back here, Katrina and I, next week on the Managed Chaos Podcast.